In this video, I'm going to tell you why I think Chrono Odyssey could be the next big revelation in the MMO genre, and I'm very much aware that that sounds an awful lot like copium. And you're not wrong, so let's jump in and let's talk about it. Let's get some basics out of the way. Chrono Odyssey is expected to be an action combat MMORPG, and it's being made by a company called Chrono Studios, and they are based in South Korea. Chrono Studios, by the way, are a subsidiary of a company called NPixel. NPixel is a company that has done a couple of different mobile games, for example, Grand Saga, and a couple of others that I don't really know the name of. But the game is billing itself as a next-generation action MMORPG, and it's being made on Unreal Engine 5. It's promising a seamless open world, a chronotector, which is a new kind of ability or something we're not 100% sure, dungeons, raiding, a little bit of PvP, meaningful harvesting, crafting, all the good stuff you would expect from an MMO, and very importantly, in fact maybe more important than anything, it currently is scheduled to come out this year. But why do I think it's actually going to change the genre? Well, for that, we need to talk a little bit about New World. So New World has had a mixed reputation at best, but I don't think anybody can deny that during the COVID period, during 2021 when the game came out, there was a lot of interest in MMOs, and particularly New World. New World was a buy-to-play MMO that nearly hit 1 million concurrents. A couple of months later, Lost Ark did sort of like similar numbers. Actually, it was a little bit more popular, but the thing is with Lost Ark is it was a free-to-play game. One of my points here is simply I think that New World kind of showed that an action combat MMO could be something that people want to try and want to succeed. Now, New World failed on a variety of different reasons, which I'm not going to talk about right here. But I think the appetite for an action combat MMO is out there. I think people are willing to try it and they kind of want it to succeed. People always talk about how BDO is one of their favorite MMOs because of the combat. New World could have possibly have joined that category, but it didn't for a couple of different reasons. Some people didn't like the combat. Sure enough, that's fine. If you don't think action combat belongs in an MMO, there's no real way I'm going to convince you that that's the case, right? But if you're somebody who's maybe a little bit fatigued at all the tab target MMOs that we've had in the past, maybe, you know, the last 30 years basically of tab target MMOs, and you're looking for a change, maybe Chrono Odyssey will be that game that inspires this change and actually makes it a success. I don't want to get into the weeds of what action combat is and what it isn't. Some people will say that ESO is action combat, and I'd say that's more of a hybrid. A lot of the previous games have been mostly like hybrids. Like ESO is almost action, but it's a little bit sort of like tab target under the hood. BDO I'm not sure about because I've not played it. Guild Wars 2, there's like a tab target method. New World is almost exclusively action combat. They have added lock-on right now, which is kind of taking it away from action combat, but mostly action combat. Now, we don't know exactly what type of action combat Chrono Odyssey is going with, but I'm just happy for any MMO to be trying it again. I think for me, the best kind of combat that would maybe be the best compromise would be basically be ESO, but if it was actually good. However, I do love the New World combat. I'm just not 100% convinced that it's very suited to MMOs, and that is going to be a reason that a lot of people will not want to play an action combat game. But action combat for me is just so much more refreshing than tab target. Like if you think about it, games that aren't like RTSs or MOBAs, all of the like single player RPGs that you play, or the majority of them, are like action combat. It's kind of weird. There are no like tab target third person games really. There's probably a couple, but you know what I mean. Tab target gameplay in the way that we experience third-person MMOs doesn't really exist in single-player games because of like the technical challenges, obviously. For me, tab target is kind of feeling a little bit dated. I will play tab target games, but I want something more interesting, and I'm hoping Chrono Odyssey is that. Not only though are we getting action combat, we are getting a little bit of a movement away from something like New World in the fact that we are getting classes. So New World is a classless game. Chrono Odyssey is going to have classes. I think it's going to have 6 distinct classes. The classes are Assassin, Berserker, Paladin, Ranger, Sorcerer, and Swordsman. Now that's another debate for the community, isn't it? Some people like the idea that there's no classes and you can be everything you want on one character. And some people say that, you know, having classes will maybe add like replayability. It kind of stops meta chasing on a big level. And there's pros and cons for each. Having played New World and still kind of being a New World Andy, I think having classes would give me another reason to play through the game and experiencing it in a different way. And there's always the possibility that they will add more classes as we go on, which will then give you even more of an excuse to replay certain content if you want to. Or of course, you don't have to bother with that. So we've spoken there literally about action combat and the class system, which I do think are things that people are possibly excited about. I also personally think that this next one is very important as well. Basically, they've said that they're going to be focusing primarily on PvE content. Now, that's not to say there is no PvP content, because as far as we know there is, it's listed on the Steam page. But one of the devs on Twitter was saying that open world PvP basically causes stress for people. And I believe that. It's kind of weird, right? Because when I play MMOs, a lot of the content that I do is actually the PvP. I like battlegrounds, arenas, and that kind of stuff. But I really don't like open world PvP. And I'll tell you why. Generally speaking, the fights that you get are way more often more unfair. Either the levels are different, the gear is different, and the number of players is different. Like, what are the chances in the open world that you get a 1v1 against somebody who is like equal to you in almost everything except the skill mattering? Kind of small. Now, some people will enjoy that because they like thinking, oh, I'm going to get attacked by 2 people and kill them. And you'll see clips online of that happening and you're like, yeah, fair play. I don't think anybody's really posting clips of them dying in a 1v3. That doesn't sound like something you'd be like, look at my highlight montage of me dying on repeat against 5 people. So for me, I'm not really that interested in open world PvP. I do like instanced PvP, like battlegrounds and stuff like that, where there is still often a disparity, at least between maybe liking gear and obviously skill, which is what people actually want the disparity to be. But it means you're like not getting outnumbered by 50 to 1 or something like that. So I like PvP in an MMO, but I don't necessarily think it should be the main focus of a game. That's not where the progression is. That's not where the world lies. Obviously, you can do that if you're going to add PvP in the open world, but I'm against that for the reasons I just outlined. I understand that if you like open world PvP, by the way, it's completely fine. You're not wrong. You're just different from what I am. And that's okay. There's also a part that if you do want equalized fair PvP while you're playing an MMO, and I get that. For me, the best thing in MMO is that it can kind of do everything and you can have different types of fun. So that's why I like having a little bit of PvP in my game. But I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. Chrono Odyssey is going to be mostly a PvE focused game, and they're actually talking about it being a growth MMO or a growth RPG. And what I think this means is that progression is going to be something that is pretty constant. Now, I don't know how that will work with like casual people and catching up. We don't know about that. But I think like a PvE focused MMO, focusing on story, focusing on, yes, sometimes a little bit like single player stuff in an MMO world, I think actually that's probably what people want, even if it's not what maybe like Twitch viewers want and maybe not what hardcore YouTube commenters want. But I think the majority of actual MMO gamers are probably looking for more PvE solo focused kind of gameplay where you can play with others and do raids and do dungeons and that kind of thing. And Chrono Odyssey is kind of promising that. So let's see if they deliver. I think it's a good decision, especially with action combat, which might not work in a PvP setting as well as say like Tab Target, but I think it's a good decision and I hope they execute it properly. I have a little bit of a concern when they call it a growth RPG. Like I really don't necessarily want to be grinding 24/7. I want the content to actually be fun. Hopefully it will be. One thing that we've experienced in New World is that it's kind of quite easy to get near Abyss, and that then means there's no real reason to play the game. Like there's not enough progression in New World. Hopefully Chrono Odyssey will not have the same issue. One thing that we don't really know its full impact of is this little like chronotector time mechanic thing. In the trailers, it kind of looks like they're winding back time, but obviously in an MMO, you're not going to be able to wind back time, are you? It's not like you're going to be able to control me if you're an enemy and make me go back. I may not know what it is, but I do know that it sounds cool. It's this chronotector. You're going to be able to do something with time manipulation, the full details of which are not yet revealed. But it's a mystery that could be exciting. I also mentioned that the game is going to be released on Unreal Engine 5, and I do think that that is a bit of a boon and a bit of a worry as well. So the good thing about Unreal Engine 5 is that it's kind of like a tried and tested engine. Some people are saying that, maybe it's causing bad optimization in certain other games. That might be the case. I'm not an engine expert, but I will say that, Unreal Engine 5 is being used in other MMOs, Ashes of Creation being one of them, but there's way more than that. It's an engine with a massive team working on that engine. It visually looks stunning, and I'm assuming it'll be kind of optimized. Obviously, I just mentioned that some of the games are not optimized, but I'm assuming they will put a lot of effort into that. And yeah, to be honest, all the footage that we've seen looks pretty amazing. The one caveat to this is Unreal Engine games can kind of look like Unreal Engine games. I would say that Chrono Odyssey's art style is very kind of like Dark Souls-esque. It's kind of like moody, gothic-y a little bit. And for me, it doesn't have that classic Unreal Engine vibe. So I think ultimately this might be a good thing, but the jury's out and we'll have to wait and see. Now let's talk about the business model. Well, this game sounds like it's going to be buy to play. Now for a lot of people, having a buy to play MMO is kind of like their ideal situation. For me, I'm actually a fan of subscription games, and I know that that puts a lot of people off because they're like more expensive than other games, but I find the subscription model to probably be the fairest way of getting content and the fairest way of paying the developers. I think it puts enough pressure on the developers to actually make content, and if they don't make content, you can cancel your subscription. That's probably why the developers don't like it, and players don't like it because it's a constant drain on your wallet, which is fine. But buy to play might be the next best. I think free to play generally leads itself to way too much pay to win, so buy to play is a good option. And in the Kakao financials, they basically kind of suggested it was going to be a buy to play model where they would then also sell DLCs. They did say there would be limited pay to win, but limited pay to win from a Korean developer like Kakao and Chrono Studio might be a lot of pay to win in the West. I'm expecting some pay to win. Like, there's no two ways about it. I would expect at least a little bit, but in a like PvE game, is it as bad as say like a PvP game like Throne of Liberty? Well, again, the jury's out on that one. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think that the buy-to-play model could be very interesting indeed. And possibly accepted. Like, New World went with that model. And if New World would have given us content, maybe they could have actually made that model succeed. But yes, I am aware of the pitfalls here that inevitably some people in the comments are going to make. Yes, it is a Korean, South Korean game, which means, you know, a lot of people will be expecting some element of pay to win. And yes, Kakao have a reputation of pay to win games, and their reputation is not exactly super stellar in the community. And also this company, Chrono Studios, have made mobile games, sure, but they've not actually made a fully fledged MMO before. And in fact, most people will not have heard of the games that they have made. So how are they going to be able to like come in and actually make a monumental MMO? Well, only time will tell. What we are thinking, by the way, because of the Kakao financials, is that at some point this year, they're going to do like a closed beta. Then if that goes well, they'll do an open beta. And if that goes well, eventually they're aiming for a release at the end of this year. And they have pressure to do that because if they don't do that, then it's going to run into their other game, which is Arcade Chronicles, which is scheduled for summer next year. It's a little bit weird to say, is Chrono Odyssey going to redefine the MMO genre in 2025? What I think it might do is build on top of something like New World, maybe be more akin to maybe like BDO. But you know what? I think gamers are ready for it. Like, I think people are desperate for an MMO. I think the success of Throne of Liberty has kind of showed that. And Throne of Liberty is mostly a PvP game. I think if you can get a PvE action combat game that's pretty decent with a lot of content, I think it could do very well indeed. At the minute, nobody's really talking about Chrono Odyssey, but if everything goes well and this game actually does come out this year, I think by the end of this year, we'll be talking in a little bit of a different way. However, I'm going to go on record and say it's probably going to get delayed. All MMOs tend to get delayed, so, you know, just be worried that like everything gets delayed. It is what it is. That's not my fault. That's just MMOs. Don't blame me. I don't bloody know. It's just a guess. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.